He's judged and received degrees from Blinn, Texas A&M. He's previously coached at Sam Houston State, and now he's back at Blinn again as their judging coordinator. We welcome Mr. Bryce Munn. Each year, the Seguin swine breeders put funds together to help out our youth here. And what they do is they accumulate these funds and they pay $100 to each class winner for the pig that was purchased from the breeders themselves. And that group is as follows: Chuck Rial, Kelso Genetics, Marshall Stry, Robert Hebner, Daggy Show Pigs, Greg and Vince Frankowiak, Warren Lampman, Five Show Pigs, Alderson Farms, 4L Show Pigs, Mason Schultz, MT Heart Livestock, BC Show Pigs, Beck Show Pigs, and James Langemeyer. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Well, nice way to start off our breeding guild show, and I thought there was quality 1 through 7, and maybe that makes it more difficult to kind of start off with one that I thought was still nice there that we ended up kicking out there in 7, just gave up some just mass, and we work our way up towards these top 4, and they've been driving a bit longer, so maybe some rear leg issues become just a bit more evident, and I don't think our class winner is out of that realm. I think one that we need to fix in terms of maybe length and levelness of hip and hinge to that rear leg. Front 2/3 of the gilt, I think, are clearly the best in my opinion. One that's still showy up front, opened up and powerful, tremendously good in the center part of her body. The drive wears on, and she certainly wore out just a bit more. And if I could just pick up the one that we have in 2, in terms of maturity pattern, I could flip that pretty easily just because her hip and rear leg are substantially more comfortable. Honestly, probably a set of running gear on this one's the best of this particular group. The call for me ends up being way too moderate in her frame size, in my opinion. She's too short in her cannon bone, too quick in her maturity pattern for me to go ahead and make that call. 3, I think, is a very nice gilt that maybe doesn't give you that quite as much extra in terms of mass or body or freshness when you put that into her. She's really expressive in terms of the shape that she's got up high, tremendously big in her hip and pin set, and I think one that ended up staying just a bit more comfortable in her rear leg travel than did the one we end up with in 4. The problem with this gilt is for how massive she is up high, she's probably a nickel frailer in her bone work. She too wants to pinch there in her ham loin and maybe cut up just a bit more in her flank. Probably, again, not quite just the same body shape and dimension. We read that into her full rib all the way back. That's a nice gilt in 3. This one hit me like a ton of bricks coming into the show ring, and again, I think kind of mirrors our class winner in terms of the front 2/3 of her body. The difference being when you get on top of that one and really steady rib cage, that one probably flattens the most of the initial 4. And we need to maybe pull apart just a bit more in terms of her 4 rib. She, from the get-go, wanted to swing her rear leg outside of the plane of her body. That's a nice gilt in 4, a nice class. Again, my compliments to each one of those young people. If you would, folks, put your hands together for each of those kids.
Placings in our first class of Berkshire gilts. 7th place, Antoine Franklin, Seguin FFA. 6th place, Justin Covarrubias. I hope I'm saying that right. Navarro FFA. 5th place is Jackson Kurz, Marion FFA. 4th place is Corey Dilling, Marion FFA. 3rd place is Gavin Bennett, Marion FFA. 2nd place is London Bowman, Cibolo Creek FFA. And 1st place goes to Brinley Forts, Cibolo Creek FFA. Brinley, we also received the $100 check from the Seguin Swine Breeders. Her pig was bred by MT Hart Livestock. Congratulations. Currently in the ring, we have our 2nd class of Berkshire gilts. These gilts were faired from July 31st through August the 21st. Chester Guild exhibitors, start getting your guilds ready. Don't bring them at this time just yet. We still have to judge our champion, Burke. But go ahead and get your Chesters up and get them ready.
Nice class. A young lady there in the middle of the ring is going to win this one, and I think one that from the onset I thought was a very, very nice gilt, one that was tough to big holes in. Not the best in terms of body shape and maybe depth at this stage of the game, and as the drive goes on, maybe she gets a bit tighter in her hip, but I think she gets out in motors more than fine. She proportions. That's a really big forearm, big-chested one that I think can lay down and have some really good ones for the next generation. I like that gilt a great deal. 2 and 3 maybe came a little bit more close. I like the extra feature, stoutness and density that 2 has. One that's probably just a bit more comfortable in motion. I like that one's depth and freshness, the center part of her body. Good job in terms of skin and hair. Comparatively, maybe our class winner a bit plainer ahead of her shoulder, a bit plainer in terms of her muscle shape. 3, a bit more moderate in terms of her frame size, and one that certainly does not lose in terms of muscle shape. Huge back and huge pin set. This one hits me as a nickel coarser and a bit quicker in her maturity pattern. The opposite is the one we have in 4. Really big frame, very, very extended to the point where maybe she comes at us, especially the top 4, will close in the most in terms of her knee, her base, her blade, her forearm shape, and even as she goes away from behind, that's the flattest in terms of her hip. But I love her presence and proportions from the side. I just wish we could open her up just a bit more coming and going. Very nice class. Again, my compliments to each one of those kiddos.
Yes, yeah. Placings in the Berkshire class, second class of Berkshires. 6th place was Hayden Warndell, Navarro FFA. 5th place was Kelsey Booker, Navarro FFA. 4th place was Brant McCullis, Cibolo Creek FFA. 3rd place, Noah Richter, Cibolo Creek FFA. 2nd place goes to Trent John Boyle, Cibolo Creek FFA. And 1st place goes to Auburn Frost, Navarro FFA. The Seguin Swine Breeder check for $100 goes to Trent John Boyle. The breeder is Chuck Rial. Congratulations.
Very good pair of gilts, and I think they have some similarities in the way they're put together from just a fundamental standpoint. And with that, I think they also probably have some similarities in maybe the place that I'd like to fix. And just to kind of give you my opinion on both of them, running gear on the young lady who wins the 2nd class is better. There's a lot more extras in the young lady who wins the 1st class, and the judgment ends up being, you call the rear leg on the older one good enough. And I guess in this case, I do, with that kind of look, that kind of presence, I'm going to forgive a little bit on rear leg to have some extra pieces. My compliments to the young lady here in the blue for your champion Berkshire. We dropped this 2nd place out, and the concern that came up initially when this one hit the ring, I think first to hit the ring, was, man, she's so good in terms of freshness and body. She did an awesome job in terms of presentation on this pig. For me, it was maturity pattern from the get-go. Cannon, maybe a little bit skull and length of hip become a bit more worrisome. I love the pieces that she's got. I guess her maturity pattern concerns me a bit more. I'm going to reach down here and use this young lady's younger class winner to be reserved. Congratulations.
Chester breeders, go ahead. Chester gills, bring your Chester gills. Champion Berkshire gill belongs to Brinley Forts of the Sybil Creek FFA. Reserve champion is Auburn Frost of the Navarro FFA. Congratulations. We now have our Chester gills coming into class. We only have one class. These gills were farrowed from August 1st to August 4th. We have 8 head. Duroc exhibitors, first class of Durocs, go ahead and start getting those pigs ready to come up. We'll be calling for you in just a second. These are gills farrowed from July 2nd to July 15th.
It's a very, very interesting trio, and I think that there is some sort, obviously, in between these top three. To be honest with you, there's one of them that's a little bit different in the way that she's put together comparatively, and the one that maybe isn't perfect, but I do think has some really, really good pieces. The young lady here in front of me is going to win this particular group. I need to set her shoulder back further onto her body, and I think that she's really, really good in the center part of her build. When she hit the ring, I thought that one could still motor pretty good, and she got tired a bit quicker, and another one that's probably just a bit more moderate in her frame. But I do think there's a ton of very, very good pieces in this particular gilt. 2 and 3, I think, is incredibly close, and I think there's probably another one that maybe patterns up a bit more like our class winner, but the one that maybe is a bit more of an outlier for me ends up being this young lady here in the middle. This one, if she has just any more in terms of full rib shape or spread in terms of her pin set, I would have used this one, and even though she gives up some in terms of mass, she's still got a bit tighter in terms of her range of motion. That one in terms of proportions, look, and even maturity pattern probably suit me just a bit more. She gives up just a bit in terms of full rib shape and mass from behind. 3 is an absolute truck when she comes at you. Awesome body shape, huge, huge hip. When you get on top of this particular gilt, she maybe is the best in the spread that she has working down her spine. That one, you got the most limit in her rear step and front step as the drive wanted to wear on. I want, again, a little bit crest in the top of her neck, one that probably doesn't give you that same elite look from the side, but that is an absolute truck. I wish that we could square her up on her front feet and knee when she drives at us, but I do think that's a tremendously good breeding piece the young lady's got. My compliments to her. I love her proportions and look from the side the young lady's got. We kind of get a bit plainer in terms of muscle shape and how she is up front. That one's a bit flatter in terms of her hip and body shape as well, but a very, very good top 3 or 4. My compliments to each of those young people.
Go ahead and bring your first class of Duroc breeding gilts up here. Those fared from 7.2 to 7.15. We have 6 entries. Placings in the Chester class, Champion Chester. First place goes to Holly Alderson. Second place goes to Haley Kaiser. She will be reserve champion. Third place goes to Holly Kaiser. Fourth place goes to Emma Linsman. Fifth place to Harley Frost. Sixth place goes to Lucas Gilner. Seventh place goes to Trenton Mills. And eighth place goes to Drew Pemilton. Holly Alderson will be the recipient of the Seguin Swine Breeder Bump Check. And the breeder on her pig was Doug Alderson. Congratulations. Second class of Durocs, go ahead, start getting your pigs up to the front here. These pigs will be faired from 719 to 727. Attention all exhibitors, if you would like a picture of your gilt, the photographer is here tonight and we'll be taking the pictures over here on the north corner of the barn by the backdrop. Anybody would like a picture of their gilt, the photographer will be there for you.
It's a very, very good top pair and maybe the top trio. The young man's gilt here in front of me is going to win the group, and not perfect in terms of feet and legs, and maybe we could stouten that one up just a bit in terms of her rear leg. But I think it's a truck coming at us and tremendously good in the center part of her body. Huge back, a huge pin set, and a still loose enough skeleton that I'm comfortable with. I wish this gilt would get off that attitude that she's got, because I do think that when she'll show off and she'll really put herself together, she's very, very good. Maybe a bit plainer ahead of her shoulder, maybe not quite as massive in terms of just muscle or width, but I do think a better hip and rear leg than even our class winner, one that still comes at us tremendously good. The center part of her body, just need to see that one just get out and go just a bit differently so we can get a better look. 3 is a very good pig. I think one that is probably misleading, maybe doesn't hit you just really hard from the side, from the onset, and maybe not quite as fresh when you get on top of her. Her chine's starting to creep up just a bit, and she's cut up in her flank and her ham loins, maybe not perfect, but a loose structure gilt that's really big-chested, one that's very good in her pin set. I think it's a gilt that's just going to lay down and make the next generation a bit better. I don't know if this gilt just needs to sit down and use the restroom, or it needs to just find a different gear, but I love the feature, the bulk, and the density that she's got. Awesome belly shape, really, really good up high, very big pin set. This one needs to be better in her hips. She wants to get a bit rounder and shorter in that regard. She's a bit harder in how she plants her rear leg to the surface, and a gilt that just needs to be freer off either into her framework once she gets in motion. But a very good top 4. My compliments to each one of them.
Placings in our first class of Duroc gilts. 6th place goes to William O'Neill, Navarro FFA. 5th place goes to Lena Adams, Cibolo Creek FFA. 4th place goes to Cage Hereford, it's Clemens 4-H. 3rd place goes to Jolene Swicky, New Berlin 4-H. 2nd place goes to Kennedy Schneider, Marion FFA. And 1st place goes to Carson Pierce, New Berlin 4-H. Carson will also receive the Seguin Swine Breeder bump check for $100. His breeder was Kelso Genetics. Congratulations to all. Coming in now will be our second class of Duroc gilts. These gilts were fared anywhere from July the 19th through July the 27th. Third class of Duroc, start getting them up, getting them ready. Attention exhibitors. The exhibitors of the first and second place Duroc gilts in both the last classes will have to bring those back to the arena again for the champion drive. That'll be the first and second class. We'll retain the third and fourth class up here. Once again, if you need pictures of your gilt or you'd like to have a picture of your breeding gilt, doesn't matter what placing, whatever you want to do. If you want a picture of her, the backdrop is there, the photographer is there, and he can take your picture. Hope it's on it.
It's a difficult pair, and I guess the one that just continues to kind of rise up, in my opinion, is the young ladies to win this class. And I need to relax her in her spine and clean her up ahead of her shoulder. And I think comparatively, even the one that we have in two, she probably flattens a bit more to the base of her rib, but I do think she's a bit more comfortable when she gets in motion. I like her elevation and extension just a touch more than we have here in two. When the pig wants to be a show pig, I think is a very good one. She's opened up. She's really good in the center part of her rib. Very, very big in terms of her pin set. That rear leg will get a little touchy when she wants to fight that whip a bit more. She's a little bit lower fronted, big crest at the top of her neck, a bit coarser maybe in the way she's put together comparatively. Excellent top pair. My compliments to both of them. Young man there on the far side has got one that I think is very basic, and I don't mean that inappropriately at all. A big featured one that I think is good in terms of feet and legs. That one I think can motor out there and be perfectly fine. That one comes off as a nickel planer and still in the way she's put together at the show today. That one, when you get on top of her, one is a bit drier in terms of her body shape. She'll get a bit steeper in her hip and a bit more rigid in her hock, but I do think that's plenty good there to stay in three. Young man showed the heck out of this gilt, and I commend you for that, young man. The front half of that gilt I like a lot. The back half is probably where I'd change her the most. She's a bit rounder in her hip, a bit flatter in the lower third of her body. For how massive she is up high, I sure need to stouten her up in her rear leg and have her go just a bit more comfortable for rear two. But awesome job getting that one shown as well. My compliments to each one of those kids.
Placings in our second class of Duroc gilts. 9th place goes to Sterling Barbie, Marion FFA. 8th place goes to Cameron Mauricio, Clemens 4H. 7th place, Hunter Rust, Navarro FFA. 6th place goes to Matthew Rodriguez, Cibolo Creek FFA. 5th place goes to Jake Schultz, Marion FFA. 4th place goes to Taylor Brawley, Seguin FFA. 3rd place goes to Cade Kurz, Marion FFA. 2nd place goes to Lucas Gilner, Navarro FFA. 1st place goes to Briston Birdwell of the Marion FFA. Our Seguin swine breeder recipient of the $100 bump check will go to Cade Kurz. The breeder on the pig is Real Hog Farms. Congratulations to all. Our third class of Duroc gilts is now entering the ring. These gilts have been faired from July the 30th to August 4th. We have 9 head entered. Once again, our judge for tonight is Bryce Munn. He's a judging coordinator at Blinn College. He lives in Brenham, Texas. He's received his degree from Blinn and Texas A&M University. He coached at Sam Houston State and currently is back at Blinn as their judging coordinator. go ahead and start bringing up your Class 4 Durocs fared from August the 7th to August the 19th. August 7th to August 19th. I'd like to point out our help tonight in the ring, passing out the ribbons. Young lady's name is Kaylee Kunchik from Navarro High School. She is our Guadalupe County Seguin Fair Duchess. Kaylee, we thank you for your help.
Very good class. I think these top four kind of surface up. A young lady here in the purple is going to win the class and just has just a bit more in terms of width and body and freshness. This one does that. And again, the drive goes on and a deeper set of sand, and maybe she gets a bit tighter as it goes on. But I think there's so much good in that particular gilt in terms of just genuine skeletal width, body shape, mass, and proportions. That's a good kind of a gilt that wins this class. I wish that we could maybe put her on this type of framework and extension up front. This one's very, very good from the side. You get on top of that gilt, she's a bit flatter to the base of her rib, a bit drier in the lower third of it. She's huge in terms of her hip. Every once in a while, she'll creep up just a bit in her top line. Her ham loin will pinch in just a bit. When she turns and comes, maybe not quite as much comparatively to our class winner. Front two-thirds of the gilt that we have in three are impressive, but the drive definitely wore this one out a bit quicker than I would hope. Really, really massive body. Upper skeleton's very, very impressive. A bit rounder in her hip, a bit tighter in that hip, and she'll plant and really, really stab that back right when she gets in motion. I love a lot of things about the gilt that we have in four. Her look, her presence, her maturity pattern, I think, is right. Comparatively, especially the front two-thirds of her, we give up in terms of just skeletal width and body shape, and maybe one that gives up some in terms of mass. She, too, will kind of push her hawk outside of the plane of her body. A very good class. My compliments to each one of them.
Placings in our third class of Duroc gilts. 10th place goes to Eric Avalos, Navarro FFA. 9th place goes to Cross Kelso, New Berlin 4H. 8th place goes to Reed Reiniger, New Berlin 4H. 7th place goes to Kason Klufus, Marion FFA. 6th place, Breland Dodd, Cibolo Creek FFA. 5th place goes to Michelle Leggett, Cibolo Creek FFA. 4th place goes to Tyler Schneider, Marion FFA. 3rd place goes to Donald Bigelow, Marion FFA. 2nd place goes to Briley Klufus, Marion FFA. And our class winner was Emily Clutter from the Marion FFA. She will also receive the bump check. The breed of her pig was MT Hart Livestock. Congratulations. 4th class of Duroc gilts are coming in as we speak. There are 9 entries. These gilts were faired from, there are going to be 8 entries. They were faired from August 7th through August the 19th. First and second place winners in our first 2 classes of Duroc gilts. I need Carson Pierce. I need your pig up here. And Kennedy Schneider, I need your pig up here. The second class, I need Briston Birdwell. I need your pig up here. And Lucas Gilner of the Navarro FFA, I need your pig up here. This will be for our final champion drive on the Durocs. Hampshire breeders, get your pigs ready. We have 3 entries. Hampshire breeders, get your pigs ready. Hold them where you got them for right now, but just go ahead and get them ready. First and second place Duroc gilts from the first two classes be in the holding area. We need you up here. Lucas Gilner, we need your Duroc gilt. Lucas Gilner, Navarro FFA. Please bring your gilt to the holding area.
Big fan of the gilt that wins this class. I love her look, her proportions, and one that just looks like a brood sow and is going to go down and do one heck of a job for this young lady down the road. As the drive goes on, I feel like I'm getting redundant in saying that. She does probably get just a bit tighter in her rear leg, but still more than comfortable, in my opinion, when she gets in motion, because I still think that's an advantage over the one we have in two, who is no doubt about it, probably a bit showier in terms of muscle shape, spread up high, and pin sets definitely there. That one for me needs to be changed. The front half of her build, clean her up at the top of her crest, square her knee, fix her front passer, and set her shoulder blade further back onto her body. Just hinge her a little bit looser off either end of her framework. I wish we could blow this gilt apart just a bit in terms of body shape and muscle, pin width especially. Over time, she wanted to creep up in her top line and drop her tail head and kind of pull that rear leg up underneath her. But when she does kind of relax and go, she proportions very, very well, just a bit too plain in terms of skeletal width and body. This gilt didn't want to be a show gilt when she first came out here, but when she finally caught a gear, she's massive in terms of width. She's very good in the upper part of her skeleton, probably a bit more uncoordinated in how she gets in motion from behind, a bit plainer ahead of her shoulder. Very, very good class. Again, my compliments to each of those kids. Folks, if you would, put your hands together for those kids and appreciate all the work they put in.
Placings in our fourth class of Duroc gilts. 8th place goes to Randallin Wagster, Navarro FFA. 7th place goes to Barley Herbold, Marion FFA. 6th place goes to Abigail Pollock, Navarro FFA. 5th place goes to Case Kelso, New Berlin 4-H. 4th place goes to Cage Hereford, Clemens 4-H. 3rd place goes to Bauer Birdwell, Marion FFA. 2nd place goes to Jenna Contreras Garcia, Cibolo Creek FFA. And 1st place and your class winner is Auburn Frost from the Navarro FFA. The Skiing Swine Breeder bump check goes to Cage Hereford. The hog was bred by Real Hog Farms. We now are having our champion Duroc drive. Hamp exhibitors, bring your hamps to the holding area. Hamp exhibitors, we have 3.
Very good set of red pigs, and I think the class winners are a direct indication of that. And I really think this comes down to maybe a 2-horse race here. A young lady over there on the going toward the corner, and this young lady right here. There's some hogs that I think are very similar, maybe how they're put together. I don't think either one of them are going to be just the biggest and most extended, and so to speak, but I do think they both are just massive in the way they're put together from a chest standpoint. Very good in their full rib shape, and both very proportional in the way they're put together. I think both of them could probably be altered just a bit structurally. As the gelding who just wins the last class, again, probably comes back out here after driving a bit more. She's not the longest hip thing you'll ever see, so she will maybe be a little more limited in that rear step. And with regards to the young lady there in the purple, that one probably comes off as a nickel courser up on the top side of her neck, but it's a massive truck in terms of body and width and has all the extras that you could ask for. Very, very good pair, and that's nothing to take away from those two over there. I think both very fundamental type of pigs. My personal favorite, though, is the young lady in the purple, and she'll be your champion.
Your champion Duroc gilt belongs to Emily Clutter, Marion FFA. Congratulations.
We dropped this second place in, and another one that I think, just in terms of maybe some brute sow fundamental things, she does very, very well. Very good in terms of function, one that I still think is elevated and refined. Maybe you start to compare her to a few others. She is a bit drier there in her forerib. She's a bit flatter in the center part of her body. I thought that was a really close decision between champion. I'm going to keep those two smaller gilts together. Young lady here, be reserved.
Reserve champion goes to Auburn Frost, Navarro FFA. Congratulations to all. Hereford Hog Exhibitors. Hereford Hog Exhibitors, bring them up to the front. We'll be with you in just a second. Hereford Guild exhibitors, go ahead and start bringing them up. Currently in the ring, we have our Hampshire class. We have a total of 3 head entered. These gilts were faired from July 15th through July 21st. Landrace exhibitors, go ahead and get your pigs ready in their pen, and we'll be calling you up in a little bit. Landrace exhibitors.
Pretty good trio of purebred Hampshire gilts here, and I think there's some differences amongst them, but I guess the one that maybe when you start to weigh totals, the one that I'm the most comfortable with from a fundamental standpoint, feet, legs, body shape, this young man here has got your champion Hampshire. I think one that's got a lot of good about him. One that I think comparatively to those other two is probably just a bit better in terms of full rib shape and center body. Compared to one, and definitely better in terms of hip and rear leg travel than the other. One that I thought just brought some good together of maybe both the two that we had here left over. This young man's going to wind up in 2 and probably is the most upright and forward there in her shoulder, but I do think still has some tremendous look up front, very good up high, a better hip. Specifically the one that we have in 3, one that's opened up and very good in terms of muscle shape. I need to elevate that one in terms of her pin set and soften her up in the lower third of her body and get her going just a bit more comfortable on her lower rear joints. But a very good trio. My compliments to each of them.
Hereford Guilds, we're ready for you in the ring. You're back there, come on up. Hereford Guilds. Placings in your Hampshire Guilds. 3rd place goes to Weston Warrendale, Navarro FFA. 2nd place goes to Hayden Warrendale of the Navarro FFA. 1st place goes to Avery Franklin, Seguin FFA. 1st place will be champion. That'll be Avery Franklin's. 2nd place will be reserve, Hayden Warrendale. Congratulations. None of these pigs were bred in the county, so there will not be a check issued for the Hampshire class. Poland China exhibitors, go ahead and get those ready. These gilts will be bred from July, or faired from July 25th through August 6th. Poland China. Entering the ring right now, we have a Hereford Gilts. We have 4 entries. Landrace Gills, go ahead and bring them up here. Landrace Gills, we have 2 entries. Poland China Gills, be getting ready.
Tell you what, you'd have to go maybe to a whole bunch of different county shows in Texas to find four Herefords in general, but at that, some that I think have a ton of quality. This top pair, I think, are very, very good, and they're different, and maybe their ultimate end goal, and I think one that maybe just suits the show ring just a bit better as the young man's right here. I was going to win your particular division. I love that one in terms of width, body shape, upper rib cage, I think is impressive in that gilt. Very big in her back shape. Pin set, I think, is right. When you start to work down on that particular hog, maybe is where you'd change her. She needs to be soft in the lower third of her body. Her flank could probably be filled up just a touch, and I'd like to maybe clean up her joints ever so slightly and maybe stouten up her rear leg. And those are all things that the young ladies here does. That's a really, really big featured one that's awesome in terms of forearm. Probably a bit more maternal in the way that one's put together from a muscle standpoint. When you get in behind her, she gets a bit flatter in terms of her hip. She is another one that we could probably just stand a bit more in terms of groceries, and that one wore down pretty quick when we got her back out of here in the ring. If she was any sounder, I would have flipped that pair. A very, very good set. My compliments to both of them. 3, very, very big muscled one that just needs to go a bit better, in my opinion. I think that one's awesome in terms of spread up high and mass from behind. That one's probably a bit coarser ahead of her shoulder. That one's a bit more timid and rich, in the reach that she has off either end of her skeleton. I like this one in terms of extension and elevation. We kind of run out of gas in terms of middle, chest width, and from behind, one's a bit too restricted in how she gets out and uses her rear leg. A nice 4 of your Hereford gilts. My compliments to each one of those kiddos.
Placing in your Hereford gilts, 4th place goes to William O'Neill, Navarro FFA. 3rd place goes to Abigail Pollock, Navarro FFA. 2nd place goes to Bethany McCormick, Navarro 4H. And 1st place in your champion will be William O'Neill, Navarro FFA. 2nd place pig, Bethany McCormick, will be reserve champion. Congratulations. Poland China breeders, gilts, bring them up. We've got 6 gilts in this first Poland China class. Go ahead and bring your Poland Chinas to the front. Currently entering the ring, we have our Landrace. We have 2 entries.
Both very, very good Landrace gilts. I'm a big fan of the young man's over here to win this particular group, and one that there's probably a difference in age between those, but that one's height of shoulder and maybe length of cannon hits me as a later maturing kind and doesn't sacrifice just width and true muscle shape up high and from behind. Still a very maternal way that she's laid all that muscle onto her body. A very good one that wins that particular class. And that is nothing to turn away from our reserve, because I think that's a tremendous gilt that has very, very unique breeding pieces. That thing is awesome up high. Very, very big in her pen set and a phenomenal turn to the center part of her skeleton. I read her as a bit lower fronted and shorter cannon. That one comparatively probably is a bit rounder hip, but I think both those very, very high quality Landrace gilts. My compliments to both of them.
Placings in your Landrace class. Second place in the reserve champion Landrace goes to Donald Bigelow. First place goes to Braden Forts, and he'll be the champion Landrace. He will also receive the Seguin Swine Breeder bump check, and that will be for $100. Congratulations. Breeder was MT Hart Livestock. Six. Second class of Poland China Gills. Go ahead and start getting those ready. There are 3 entered in that class. Faro dates are from August 10th to August 15th. Second class of Poland China Gills. Go ahead and start bringing those up. There are 3 entries. Spot exhibitors, go ahead and get your spots ready to go. First class of spots. Fair dates from July 1st to July 19th.
I like a lot of things about the gilt that wins this particular class, and I wish that maybe we could blend her ham loin a bit smoother, and I think that thing is so good everywhere else. So very good in terms of chest and stoutness and feature, and still the bulk I think is right, and the rear leg, the motor's good enough. Not perfect, maybe not quite as fresh and presented like our second place is, and I think the call with this particular pig is if you're comfortable enough with that stuff going on the lower third of her body, huge back, huge square hip, and a hind leg that's very, very good. She probably maybe gets a bit more struggling on the front end of her skeleton, but the big thing is, man, just need to clean that one up in the lower third of her body. 3 and 4, I think, are both good pigs, and the gilt that actually ends up in 3 hit me pretty hard when she came out into the ring. Very good in her body shape, very fresh in terms of her skin and hair, awesome up high in terms of spread. The drive wears on. She gets pretty tight in terms of her hip, and one that's a bit shorter in her hip as well, a bit more moderate in terms of her frame size up front. I think that one does have a lot of good about her. Man, this one, I guess, was a pain getting in, and maybe that made her just a bit stoved up coming in, but I like that one's extra density and feature. I like that one in terms of maturity pattern, even one more so than the one that we just beat her with. I think that one just gets a bit too tight in her spine, her hip, and more rigid in her rear leg. If we could just loosen her up just a bit, I like a lot of pieces about her that make me a Poland a little bit different. Very, very good class. My compliments to each of them.
Placing your first class of Poland China Gills are 6th place, Cameron Mauricio, Clemens 4-H. 5th place goes to Noah Richter, Cibolo Creek FFA. 4th place is Avery Larios, Marion FFA. 3rd place goes to Morgan Booker, Navarro FFA. 2nd place, Cody Kelso, New Berlin 4-H. And 1st place goes to Cass Pape, Marion FFA. Your Seguin Swine Breeder check goes to the 2nd place pig. That'd be Cody Kelso. She will receive a $100 check from Seguin Swine Breeders. Congratulations.
Hey, Debbie, Wade's having a fit over there.
First class of spots, go ahead and start bringing your pigs up. First class of spots. We have 4 entries. They were fair between 7-1 and 7-19. On our last class, we had a mistake there. Cass Pape will receive the Seguin Swine Breeder check. The breeder was 4L Show Pigs. Sorry for the mistake.
It's a difficult class. I think each of them has something that you're drawn to, that you want to maybe latch a hold of, and there's something about them that maybe you change. But I guess the one that I see is the most fault-free is the young man over here in the blue to win this class, and one that probably doesn't overwhelm you with width. They're just muscle shape, but I think more than enough in that regard. Very maternal way that she's laid her muscle onto her skeleton. And a skeleton I'm just much more comfortable with compared to a few others that we have directly behind her. Young man there in the middle is going to be in second. Back two-thirds of that gilt I think are very good. Front third needs some work. We need to fix that one in terms of front pasturance. That one's maturity and maybe coarseness up front hinders that one just a bit more. But in terms of extra feature, muscle, and dimension, that's an outlier for the breed, and I think that one has a ton of breeding pieces to him. The young gilt that we have to be in three, one that's very fresh, very, very good in terms of back shape and pin set is wide. That one gets a bit too tight in terms of hind leg movement or hip construction. It's just a bit shorter and rounder in that regard, a bit more jammed up off either end of her framework as well. A nice class. Again, my compliments to each of them.
Placings in your second class of Poland China Gills. Third place was Cross Kelso, New Berlin 4-H. Second place was Case Kelso, New Berlin 4-H. And first place was Cason Clufus, Marion FFA. Cason will also receive the Skiing Swine breeder check. The breeder was Kelso Genetics. We're now judging for our champion Poland China Gilt and reserve. First class of spot gilts. If you're not up here, go ahead and bring them up.
It's a very good pair of Poland gilts, and I just think there's one that has a bit more in terms of features, skeletal width, and muscle shape. Young man over here is going to have your champion Poland. Congratulations.
Champion Poland China Gilt goes to Cass Pape. Congratulations. We're now judging for our reserve.
I think both of these are very good and fundamental in the way they're put together, and obviously there's one that probably has a bit more just in terms of extreme pieces, and with that, we get back to the lower third of her body and whatever that is, that swelling, whether it be a lymph or a rupture or whatnot, that's the cause for concern. I think if that doesn't bother you at all, that thing is elite, and some pieces that she brings to the table, I guess that ends up being the concern for me, and you can use what you want to when you grab the microphone, but those are tough to make. That's still my second favorite. Congratulations.
Reserve champion Poland China goes to Cody Kelso. Congratulations. We now have our spotted Poland Chinas coming in the ring. These gilts bred from faired from July 1st to July 19th. We have 4 entries. We will have 2 classes of spotted Poland Chinas. Second class of spot gilts. Go ahead and start bringing them to the arena. Gilts bred 725 to 818. Spotted Poland China gilts. Bring them up here.
It's a very good set of spots, and I think that their difference is built into every one of these. And I don't want to tell you how I place them just yet because I want to be able to talk each one of them. But I do think there's one that maybe is the combination of the group that we have behind him. The young man here in the pink's got the one that just suits me the best, and I sure like to fix that one from her neck into her blade, maybe set her shoulder further back onto her body. Oh, that thing is so good from there back. I think that's the one that I gravitate towards just a bit more. If we can relax the spine and give a shot more to the middle part of the young ladies there, that one would certainly suit me incredibly, incredibly well. She just does get a little bit flat in the lower third of her body, and she will creep up there in her top line when she's not really getting cranked. If you want to call this one just maybe too moderate in her frame like I do, I think that has ended up why she's in third. She's very comfortable inside her running gear, one that I think is massive in terms of body and muscle shape. To me, she's too moderate in her frame, probably hits you as a nickel quicker in her maturity. How massive she is everywhere else, I need to stouten her up in her bone work. And the reason I didn't want to place them before I got on the microphone is because I like so much about the gilt that we have there in 4. Comes off as a bit more mature in the way she's put together ahead of her shoulder. You get on top of that gilt, she's a bit staler in her condition, a bit flatter in her body work. But that thing is so big in terms of feature and density, I think is very, very impressive. She didn't want to act like a show pig and really get out and cock herself off, but there is a ton of breeding value and a really, really good breeding piece in the gilt that we end up having in 4. Very, very good class. Congratulations to each one of those kids.
Placing in our first class of spot gilts. 4th place goes to Mason Richter, Cibolo Creek FFA. 3rd place goes to Haley Pompa, Cibolo Creek FFA. 2nd place goes to Brindley Forts, Cibolo Creek FFA. And 1st place goes to Braden Forts, Marion FFA. Braden will also be the recipient of the Seguin Swine Breeder Bump Check. Breeder was MT Hart Livestock. Congratulations. First class of Yorkshire gilts. Go ahead and start getting them ready. Don't bring them at this time. Just get them ready.
Very, very good top pair, and I think they both have some very similar pieces to them. And there's one, I guess, in my opinion, that's a bit better looking and better in their proportions, and the other one's a bit stouter. And both of them are getting a little bit tired in this deeper sand, but I think both of them are still plenty good functionally. An elite pair of spot gilts, in my opinion. But I like a lot of things about this young lady's gilt, and she's going to win this particular cast. I love that thing from the side, especially when she wants to act like a show pig. She's elevated. She's great looking. She's good in the spread that she has up high, a very square hip and a hind leg that functions beneath it. She's not as stout. She's not as dense. She's probably not as good right there in her forehip shape as the young man's who hit me incredibly hard as soon as she hit the ring. This one, again, as the drive goes on, maybe gets a bit more limited and quicker in her rear step. There's tremendous amount of mass that she's working up high and from behind. Phenomenal turn to the center part of her body, and young man does a great job of getting her shown. Really big muscled one that ends up in 3 that's just a bit too coarse and stabs her rear leg a bit hard for me. A little bit flatter in the forehip part of her body. She'll push a little extra weight on the outside of her toe and never really set down with some comfortability to it. But there's a freak of nature built with that kind of feature, width, and muscle. I like that one's maybe look and presence from the side a bit more that we have in 4. Just runs out of gas when you get on top of that gilt. Too flat in terms of her forerib shape, a bit drier in the way she's put together through her center body. If you want to tell me she motor is just a bit better than 3 and flip that pair, I wouldn't argue much. A very, very good class. My compliments to each of them.
Placings in your second class of spot gilts. 5th place was Briley Herbal, Marion FFA. 4th place is Emma Hartman, Navarro FFA. 3rd place goes to Monique Gonzalez, Cibolo Creek FFA. 2nd place goes to Trenton Mills, Marion FFA. And 1st place goes to Halen Gemmler, Marion FFA. Trenton Mills will receive the $100 bump check from Skeen Swine Breeders. His pig was bred by BC Show Pigs. Congratulations to all. We'll now judge for our champion, Spotted Poland China.
You want to call them up?
I guess both these are a little bit tired and annoyed about being in the ring, and I think there's some differences amongst them, and you guys can let them sit. No need to push them anymore. There's certainly some differences amongst them. The young man that wins the first class has got one that's definitely maybe just a bit bigger featured, more opened up, but I think that also probably comes with a few more flaws. That one will creep up in her top line. She needs to be further back under her shoulder. I need to fix her front feet and how they set to the surface and have her neck blend in a bit differently in the top side of her shoulder. I wish we could put the stoutness and bone work that we have in her and put it on this one that wins the second class, and then I think it becomes lights out because this one suits me incredibly well from the side. Another one that's maybe just fighting the stick a bit, but I love that one's presence and look and proportions from the side. I think when she does want to be a show pick and go, she motors just a bit more comfortably. Very, very nice pair. My personal favorite's the one lady right here. Congratulations.
Champion Spotted Breeding Guild goes to Halen Gemmler, Marion FFA. And I'll be judging for our reserve. First class of Yorkshire Guild, so if you're not up here, bring them on up. Fair dates are from July 2nd, July 10th. Second class of Yorkshire Guilds, go ahead and start getting your pigs ready. Don't bring them up at this time, just get them ready.
We bring out the second place and another one that just drove, and maybe she and maybe fighting that sand just a bit more too. If you study that gilt off the side, I actually like her elevation of shoulder and proportions from the side, maybe even a nickel better than the one that she's competing against. I will say she's probably rocked forward in her blade and a bit shorter in her front step, and she is a bit shorter in her rear step as well. Every once in a while, she may be one a little tighter there in her ham loin shape, but I think both of these are tremendously good. It's really tough to get maybe just great looks of the gilt that wins the first class, and then when she does want to fight that whip, she really throw her top line out and really throws her out of whack from the side. So I think it becomes very, very close. And again, when you grab a microphone in the ring, you use the ones you like. My second favorite's the second place in that class. Congratulations.
Reserve champion Spotted Poland China goes to Trenton Mills, Marion FFA. Congratulations. We'll now have our first class of Yorkshire Guilds coming in. We'll have 3 in the first class and 4 in the second. Our second class of Yorkshire Guilds, go ahead and bring them up here. These are the gilts that are faired from July 14th to August 13th.
It's a nice pair. Young lady's gilt in front of me is going to win the class, and I thought that top pair maybe had some trade-offs to it. This one's probably just a bit fresher and fuller and better, and the center part of her body, what I think probably hits me, is just the nickel maternal and the sweep that she's got. In saying that, she's probably got a bit more condition. I'd like to clean her through her jowline and even a little bit in the lower third of her body, maybe stouten her up just a skosh in terms of bone work, but up high on that. She's bigger pinned. She's got a better spread right behind her shoulder, and that continues right there in the middle part of her body as well. The young man's gilt probably suits me a bit more in terms of frame size and maturity pattern. That one's very, very good up ahead of her shoulder, very good in the front half of her body. It's the back half where we start to maybe find some flaws, at least in my perspective. I'd like to elevate that one in her pin set because she will get a bit round and pull her rear leg up underneath her. She gets a bit plainer when you step in directly behind her and close in just a bit at her hock. But that's a very good pair. I thought that was awfully close. The outlier of the group is the young lady's very dense featured one that I think is late maturing and extended. This one probably a bit plainer ahead of her shoulder. When you get on top of her, of those three is the flattest in her full rib and the plainest when you get out behind her in terms of her hip and pin set. A very good trio. My compliments to each of them.
Placings in our first class of Yorkshire gilts. Third place goes Abigail Chambers, Marion FFA. Second place, Cage Hereford, Clemens 4-H. And first place goes to Lena Leola, Marion FFA. She will also receive the Swine Breeder bump check. The breeder of the hog was Real Hog Farm. We now have our second class of Yorkshire gilts coming in. We have 4 head. Again, if anybody needs a picture of their breeding gilt, the photographer is here. They're taking them back there by the backdrop on the north side of the barn. So if you need a picture, just let us know. Attention to barn, Crossbred gilts. Fair dates from July the 5th through July the 25th. We have 6 in a class. First class, just go ahead. You can start getting them ready. Cass Pape, if you're around, come to the announcer stand, please. Cass Pape.
The young man here in the middle of the ring's got my personal favorite to win the class, and I'm not going to tell you that maybe doesn't have some things that I'd like to change, maybe relax just a bit in her spine and soften her up in her foreweb and even pick her up in her front pasterns. But in terms of quality look and one that I think combines that with some extra pieces and still a fundamental build, I think it's the one I think I'm going to tie into in this particular group. I like a lot of things about the gilt that ends up in second, and there's folks ringside that can say that she's just too mature and kind of looks like a sow right now, but I guess ultimately that's the goal of this particular group, and a very, very dense featured one that's awesome in terms of extension, length of hip, use of her rear leg. I don't know if she's past her prime, so to speak, but she's definitely not as fresh in her skin, her hair, condition. Body-wise, that one's probably just could use a shot more fill. I'd like to square her up from chest to knee to ground as well. That's a very good fundamental type of pig that ends there in 2. 3, young man's got one that's very big body, deep in her full rib, and probably a lot of that's added to some condition. A bit crushed in the top of her neck, especially when you get that one coming to you. I want to close in at her base, flatten out of her hip, and close in at her hocks as well. Tons of muscle, tons of product, and the young lady's gilt that we have in 3 has to come with a better set of running gear for me to be comfortable moving her up, but I love the extra pieces, just needs to come with some fundamentals in order for me to move her up any higher. Great class. Again, my compliments to each of them.
Placings in our second class of Yorkshire Gilts. 4th place goes to Aubrey Bowman, Cibolo Creek FFA. 3rd place goes to Corey Dilling, Marion FFA. 2nd place goes to Isabella Hartman, Navarro FFA. And 1st place goes to Weston Warrendale, Navarro FFA. We will now judge for our champion York breeding gilt.
Did you say that?
Who's the breeder?
Berkshire, Marvin Gall.
Okay. In the last class of Yorkshire Gilts, the recipient of the Seguin Swine Breeders check goes to Aubrey Bowman. Her pig was bred by Berkshire Pigs. She'll be receiving a $100 bump check. Congratulations.
2 different kinds that we have out here competing for your champion Yorkshire division, and I wish that there were parts and pieces of each of them that we could just squeeze together and make the decision really, really simple. We've got one that's probably just a bit softer, a bit more maternal in the way she's laid her muscle onto her body, probably a bit looser in the way she's put together structurally. The young lady wins the first class to be your champion.
Champion Yorkshire Breeding Gilt goes to Lena Leola, Marion FFA.
We dropped that second place in, and we talked about maybe the front 2/3 of that gilt being very, very good and maybe matching up very similar to our class winner ultimate champion. The issues that maybe we found, or at least I found in the gilt, is maybe fix her just a bit in terms of her hip construction and maybe square her up just a bit in terms of her rear leg placement. I still think that's one that body type wise is a bit further along, a bit fresher in terms of her center, and still massive coming at you. I still think that's the second best breeding gilt in my opinion. Congratulations, young man, are here for your reserve champion.
Reserve champion Yorkshire Gilt goes to Cage Hereford, Clemens 4-H. Congratulations. First class of Crossbred Gilts. Fair dates July the 5th through July the 25th. We have 6 head. Second class of cross gilts. Those that were ferried from August 1st to August 25th. Go ahead and start bringing them to the holding area.
Well, this top trio, actually the top four, I should say, I think are very good, and there's some differences amongst them that I think personal preference kind of takes over, and you got to figure out what works the best for you. The class winner, in my opinion, I guess probably isn't just the freshest in terms of body condition, but it is my kind in terms of maturity pattern, extension. This little black spotted one, just one does it for me just a bit more. I like this gilt to win this particular class. That thing is massive coming at you and really, really good in terms of chest. Awesome spread up high and a big hip. She'll swing that rear leg out just a bit, but I still think it's in the window of acceptability. I wish that she was as fresh and as good in her skin and hair as the young lady here that we have in two's gilt. That thing is massive chested, awesome bellied. She does an awesome job of getting her going, maybe to the point where she's getting a bit tighter. She's probably a bit pushing, a bit more condition, obviously, than our class winner, but she's also a bit more moderate in her frame. I just thought she was a bit cleaner jointed, a bit better in terms of maybe her cleanliness of joints and look from the side than the one that we have in three. If muscle, stoutness, and power is your thing, this gilt has all that and then some. I think is huge in terms of her jawline, skull, chest shape, form, big back, big hip, and a hind leg that is absolutely monstrous. I guess a gilt for me when you get off to the side of her is another one that's probably a bit lower fronted, a bit plainer and coarser ahead of her shoulder. She'll creep up there in her top line and not want to blend in just perfectly from her neck into the top side of her shoulder. And on top of that, you get in behind her. She'll also kind of pivot outside of the plane of her body. It's a very, very intriguing gilt, one that I would love to have back in my place and see what she can do in the next generation. The different one of the group is this young man's right here. I'm going to tell you that I very much like this gilt. I think she brings some very intriguing pieces and an outlier of the group of this top four. She's late maturing. She's extended. She's very good in terms of her body shape and design. That one, for how massive and maybe mature she is, up everywhere. She's also the frailest in terms of her feet and legs. She'll want to be a bit more rigid in how she places her rear leg to the surface, getting a bit cresty on the top side of her neck. She's a bit in at her knee and wants to flatten her front pasterns. I think she's a very, very intriguing gilt, one that I'd be awfully happy to have back in my place. Maybe for the show today is a bit more mature and staler in the way she's put together comparatively, but an awesome set. Again, my congratulations to each of those kids.
Placings in your first class of cross gilts. Sixth place goes to Paige Lightfoot, Marion FFA. Fifth place goes to Haley Moat, Marion FFA. Fourth place goes to Cade Pape, Marion FFA. Third place goes to Cody Kelso, New Berlin 4-H. Second place goes to Brindley Forts, Cibolo Creek FFA. And first place goes to Haley Blades, Navarro FFA. Yeah. Skiing Swine Breeder bump check will go to Brindley Forts. The breeder of her pig was Empty Heart Livestock. We now have our second class of cross gilts. There's 6 in this class. Fair dates are from August 1st to August the 25th. Attention in the barn, if you have a champion or reserve champion hog for each of the breeds, we need to get those ready. They'll be coming in here after we judge the champion cross and reserve champion cross. Again, we're going to need all the breeds. We'll need the champion and reserve champion to come back to the ring. Thank you. I've been told that the market classes have been posted over on the exhibit office. So if you're showing tomorrow and you want to know which class you're going to be in, you might want to take a look at that before you head to the house.
I like all four of these gilts a great deal, and you don't have to drive them right now. You can let her relax. And I think that you could probably justify a few different placings. The blue gilt hit me like a ton of bricks, and that look right there is what does it. Skull, jawline, very square, good in terms of knee and forearm, a big back and a big hip. She will put a little extra weight and pressure on the outside of that back right toe, and I wish we could soften her up just a bit in the lower third of her body. Both those things, I think, are big attributes the young man here with the white gilt's got. I wish that we could just change that one's neck and head attachment, extension up front, because the back two-thirds of that gilt, I think, are very, very good. Tremendous spread up high, awesome in terms of belly shape, hip and rear leg, I think, work effectively. I love the look, proportions, and balance of the gilt that we have here in 3. She get on top of that gilt. She's wanting to flatten the most. The base of her forearm, the center part of her body just needs to open up and soften up just a touch. I think that's a gilt that's very, very good. When she doesn't want to drive, she will creep up in her top line and kind of pull her rear leg just a bit more. Man, if this gilt would just calm down and maybe tone down a bit, there is so much I absolutely love about her. Up front, the front two-thirds of her, I think, are very, very intriguing. She is probably the tightest in terms of her forerib and heart comparatively. And as she kind of fought the whip, she got the tightest in her hip and her rear leg. If you want to move that one up a few spots and tell me she's that futuristic and awesome and the way she's put together up front, I'd agree with that. I just need to fix that one's hip and rear leg. 5 and 6, both good pigs. A little bit looser structured one with the calico. Really, really opened up. Stout one that we end up rounding out the class with. A bit plainer ahead of her shoulder and flatten her front pasterns. Need to fix that one's hip and rear leg travel to move that one up any higher. A very deep, very, very good class. My compliments to each of those kids.
Placing our second class of crossbred gilts. 6th place goes to Carly Schneider, Marion FFA. 5th place goes to Joaquin Sanchez, Seguin FFA. 4th place goes to Weston Warrendell, Navarro FFA. 3rd place goes to Lucas Gilner, Navarro FFA. 2nd place goes to Braden Forts, Marion FFA. And 1st place goes to Holly Alderson, the Marion FFA. Holly will also win the Seguin Swine Breeder check. The breeder was Doug Alderson. Congratulations. We'll now be judging for our champion cross gilt. Everyone in the barn that has a breed champion, please bring your gilts up to the holding area. All gilts that are breed champions. We'll call the reserves in just a second. Bring your breed champions.
It's a very, very good pair of crossbreds, and again, maybe we could, that'll be fun. We can squeeze some things together for them, and I think that makes the decision a little bit more difficult because each of them has something I'm drawn to, and just to kind of highlight both of them, maybe hawk up and hip forward. I love the little blue gilt that she's driving, and I wish that maybe she'd just be a bit square in how she plants on her rear feet, but I do think she's still square in her hawk placement. I don't think that becomes the issue. I think that one's very, very good in her proportions. I think she's good in the way she's put together from the side and loose structured. The gilt that wins the heavier class is probably a bit more elevated and extended as she comes back out here. I wish that we could blend her neck into the top of her shoulder just a bit more effectively, maybe stouten her mug up just a bit. And as she wants to drive, she'll probably swing outside of the plane of her body just a bit more than I'm comfortable with every once in a while. But when she does want to get out there and cat from the side, she feels her stride. She looks very, very good from the side. Both a very, very good pair of gilts. My compliments to both of them, but I really like the little blue gilt. Congratulations.
Champion cross gilt goes to Holly Alderson, Marion FFA. Congratulations.
We dropped that second place in, and again, there's so much good to this gilt. I just wish that maybe we could change that one's head, neck, and shoulder, and I do think that one's so good in the middle part of her body. A really big back, a big pin set, and a loose set of running gear, I think, can make her very competitive in this particular drive. I guess for me, she becomes a bit too plain and mature ahead of her shoulder for that frame size. I do think they're both very, very good gilts, and my compliments to both of them, but I like the heavier weight one to be reserved. Congratulations.
Reserve champion, crossbred gilt goes to Haley Blades, Navarro FFA. Congratulations.
He's going to take a bath. The judge took a bath.
In just a few minutes, we'll have our grand champion drive. Exhibitors, if you could bring your champion pigs in in the order you showed so we can get your name right. Bring them in one at a time. And then we'll do the reserves right after the champions. While we're taking a little break before our champion drive, I want to announce that the champion belt buckles are donated. The champion belt buckle, that is donated in memory of Lauren Warndell. And the reserve champion belt buckle has been sponsored by St. Haywick Feed and Supply, Greg and Vince Frankowiak. Thank you all very much.
Hey, attention in the barns real quick here. I know tomorrow morning the weather and everything is supposed to be bad and all that. We still plan on starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I know a lot of schools canceled and all that. We still plan on starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Also, remember, this year, you are responsible for cleaning all the shavings out of your pen in the alleyway in front of it. So please I will have trash bags and stuff. If you got a shovel or a wheelbarrow, you want to bring that, you're more than welcome to, but you are responsible for cleaning out your pins tomorrow after we are through with the show.
Okay, well, I guess we could start with asking.
Okay, we're ready to start our champion drive. Can we first have our champion Burke exhibited by Brindley Forts? Here comes Brindley with her champion. We got her. Again, this is your champion Berkshire, exhibited by Brindley Forts, Cibolo Creek FFA. Our champion Chester is exhibited by Holly Alderson, Marion FFA. Our champion Duroc is exhibited by Emily Clutter, Marion FFA. Our champion Hampshire is exhibited by Avery Franklin, Seguin FFA. Champion Hereford is exhibited by William O'Neill, Navarro FFA. Champion Landrace is exhibited by Braden Forts, Marion FFA. Champion Poland, exhibited by Cass Pape, Marion FFA. Spot. Champion Spot, exhibited by Halen Gimler, Marion FFA. Little stage fright. John, can you give her a hand? Okay. Go ahead. The York is exhibited by Lena Yeola, Marion FFA. And coming from the caged area over there, in the pin, that would be our champion Crossbred, exhibited by Holly Alderson, Marion FFA. Yeah. At this time, I want to acknowledge all the reserve champions there in the back. We'll pull up the one that follows the breed that wins grand. Our reserve, Burke, Auburn Frost, Navarro FFA. Oh, yeah. Haley Kaiser had reserve champion Chester. Reserve champion Auburn Frost is the champion Duroc, reserve champion Duroc. Reserve champion Hampshire is Hayden Warrendale. Reserve champion Hereford is Bethany McCormick. Reserve champion Landrace is Donald Bigelow. Reserve champion Poland China is Cody Kelso. Reserve champion Spot is Trenton Mills, Marion FFA. Reserve champion Yorkshire is Caleb Hereford. Cage Hereford. And our reserve champion Cross, Haley Blades of Navarro FFA. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
You guys can let them sit real quick. Folks, if you would, before we get too far into it, a big round of applause for your folks here to put a tremendously good show on. To have a breeding guild show, and especially a high quality one at that, still in this part of the world and Texas, I think is rare, and you guys have had a phenomenal one. So thank you guys for doing that. I love this area and this community. It's synonymous with incredibly intelligent hog minds and breeders and some industry changing boars that have come out of this area. So you guys, take my word for one thing. It's just tonight, listen to whoever it is that are giving you hogs or getting hogs in the ring for you, because I thought the set was tremendously good, and I want to commend every single kid that walked through the ring. So if you would, give them a big round of applause as well, if you could. I like to do this, and maybe it's changed my perspective a bunch in the last year and a half. I don't know if we have any commissioners or elected officials for Guadalupe County in the ring or in the area, but I want to say thank you, at least from my perspective, for continuing to support these kids and having this show continue. The good Lord knows that we're not real high on the totem pole when it comes to the big scheme of things, and to have our elected officials support what we do from the hog industry and the livestock sector as a whole, I think is huge. So if you are an elected official, thank you guys for doing what you're doing for these kids. I greatly appreciate that. And folks, give them a big round of applause as well, if you would. One more thing, and my wife will tell you that I like to hear myself talk, and she's probably not just too awful wrong. But I want to say one thing. I've got 3 beautiful kids at home, and my wife is taking care of them right now. And by now, they're probably getting really close to bedtime, and they're saying their prayers. And every night, we pray for a few things. We thank the good Lord for giving us the ability, the opportunity to live in this country and to be protected by the best armed forces and police. Anybody, if you're a first responder, or if you are a member of active duty or non-active duty, I want to say thank you guys so much for everything that you do to keep our family safe. You don't have to turn the channel too many times to find out there's a whole lot of evil in this world, and when things go south, they're the ones that go into that. And I'm the one that's probably back in the ways a little bit. So especially for me, thank you guys so much for what you do. So if you are here, and we have some here, please stand up and let's be able to congratulate them and thank them a certain way. Thank you so much. And now maybe a more intent discussion here on the pigs, and not necessarily about each and every one of these things, but what they represent. As a college professor now for the last almost 10 years, you see a big change in our society, and I think people older than I am would say it's even greater from my generation to the next. We need a lot more kids in this activity, because what we're doing right now is teaching our kids a whole lot. Hard work, dedication, a little bit of work ethic, and some try goes a long way. And for God's sakes, not everybody can be a winner, and participation trophies aren't necessarily something that we need to brag home about. I think, a personal opinion, you get to learn a lot more from getting kicked in the teeth and dusting yourself off and coming back harder next year than you ever do from getting a participation trophy. So thank you guys for doing what you're doing. The folks in Guadalupe County for putting together an incredibly good set of pigs, an awesome, outstanding group of kids. Folks, one more big round of applause for each one of those, if you would. I think that the set itself, and you guys can crank them all back up, has been really, really tremendous. And there's some hogs in here that are going to turn some heads come February. I'm very confident in that. And I encourage you, folks, when you grab a microphone, use the ones you like. I'm never going to be the guy that's on the ringside, maybe really, really mad. I don't have to agree with everything that every judge does, and I think that's part of the issue. I mean, we do this thing to give one person's opinion to come in a ring and see what they think, and if you don't like it, the best thing about pig shows is there's always another pig show. So my hat's off to all of you guys. I thought the set was incredible. I'm not going to go through and talk each one of them, but I did think that the set was very, very good. But there was one that hit me hard early, continues to hit me hard. My favorite is the Berkshire. Congratulations.
The champion Berkshire breeding gilt belongs to Brindley Forts, Cibolo Creek FFA. Congratulations. We'll now judge for our reserve grand champion. Please bring in the reserve Burke. Auburn Frost, huh? While Bryce is evaluating this last pig today, we want to thank him for coming over here tonight and doing a fine job. I believe everybody was pretty pleased with everything they got, and hopefully everybody respects and honors this guy. This guy's got a lot of responsibilities in teaching young people on how to become like himself, a livestock judge, and teach them how to, make careers in the agricultural field. So, again, hats off to Bryce, and let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you, Ring.
And not last but least, but our ring help tonight was fantastic. We have some great guys. I've known them all my life. And also we have our Dutches over here that was helped pass out. Just want to thank all the ring help tonight, too, for a great job.
Well, I think it certainly becomes just as competitive, and we drop in the reserve Berkshire, and I don't think the quality had left the ring. I think it's certainly still here. Very, very good reserve Yorkshire female. And I'm not going to go through and talk each one. I'm going to hang up the mic and go show you the one that I thought was the second best. But I do hope that only one person leaves this place happy. I hope everybody who didn't achieve exactly what they wanted, they leave here with maybe a little fire in their belly, and they want to come back for a little bit more and work a little bit harder next year. I think that's part of the issue. We're not the issue. I think that's part of the greatness of what we can teach these young people is to keep doing that. My hat's off to every single one of you. Folks, one more big round of applause for the kids and the folks putting on a tremendous show. I'm going to hang up the microphone and show the one I thought was second best.
Reserve champion will be your Crossbred, shown by Holly Allison. Congratulations. Everyone, please be careful on your way in here tomorrow if you're coming back for the market show. We appreciate you all being here. Just drive safe in the morning and tonight as well. Thank you.